Hey, I'm Keul with Agri Supply. Thank you for joining us today. We will be covering disc harrows, and we will go over some of the replacement parts that we offer and give you some tips on how to install them on your disc harrows. This is actually our second video on disc harrows. So if you haven't seen that one yet, go back and check it out as well prior to watching this one. Let's talk about safety before you start repairing the parts on your harrow. First, take notice of our jack stands, one on each side. These are actually holding the harrow up, and we're not depending solely on the lift or hydraulic lifts of the tractor. Safety gloves for handling sharp edge blades. Eye protection for when you're using various tools that pieces of metal may jump up. So keep safety in mind as you work on your harrow. Okay, now that you have removed your gang of blades from your harrow's frame, as mentioned, this is a gang assembly consisting of 5 blades, 2 bearings, various size spacers, all fit upon one axle, secured by a lock nut, lock washer, and another casting washer to help keep these blades tight along your axle. If you know that you're going to do this a few days ahead of time, we recommend that you use your favorite penetrating oil, whatever that may be, to go ahead and spray the threads and maybe spray in between some of these other places to allow time to help break free any rust or anything that could have stuck together to make your job much more easier. Today we will be using an impact wrench. We realize everybody may not have one of those. You may use things like a pull handle, but you also need maybe a large pipe wrench to hold against what the pull handle is doing on this end. Something to consider. This may be a 2 or more person job. Keep that in mind to remain safe while replacing the parts on your harrow. Okay, now that we have loosened the nut on the end of the axle with our impact wrench, a couple of pointers. Take your phone, take a picture of how it's assembled. So when you go back to reassemble it, you can look at your picture. Or while you're taking these components off, stack them in such a way as to where you will remember how to put them back on. All right, let's remove our nut. And notice this is a lock nut, has the nylon insert. And then it's also a lock washer to give that added protection to help keep the blades and bearings and spacers tight on this axle, which is so crucial in the proper running of your harrow. We'll remove end spacer. We'll take the first blade off. And again, we realize this is easier for us to do today because this is only a slightly used harrow, and where yours would have dirt caked up in it, and it could just take a little bit longer for you to do this. Removing this one, removing the bearing. And notice when we took this one, it was a shorter spacer. Had one a little bit longer spacer. Remove the second blade. And then here we have a longer spacer. Now, this same process continues throughout the completion of this axle assembly. Again, we can't stress this enough. Keeping this assembly tight is so important. If it's not tight, the blades can possibly work towards, as they wear, the center holes spinning along the axle, watering out the center hole of the blade and also cutting into the axle, causing these parts to wear prematurely. Now, let's talk about some of the many replacement parts we have for disc harrows at Agri Supply. Let's briefly talk about the disc blade. This particular one is an 18-inch diameter, certain size hole pattern. I think this was, as it's considered, a double punch, 7/8 one way, 1 inch the other way, so it would fit on either size axle. It is a notch blade. In this particular case, it's popular on many ATV harrows. This is a 12-inch blade with a 3/4 inch round hole in it. Again, also a notch blade. You know, so you can check out, look at your axle size and blade diameter. If you're replacing a worn one, you could kind of say, well, hey, what diameter is my blade now? And then you might need to add 1 inch or so to determine the size that you need. Another parts would be spacers and end washers and such like that. So this particular one is a end washer, bumper washer some call it, and it will fit on the end of an axle. All right, now while we're talking about axles, we carry mostly square axles ranging currently in sizes from 7/8 inch to 1 1/8 inch with many lengths to choose from. Now going on to what goes on the axle. Of course we know end washer, blades, then you're going to start getting into various spacers that you'll need to go in between your blade. Again, determining what size your axle is most important, and in what length the spacer is. Some more spacers we offer, as you see, one a little shorter, one even shorter than that. Let's talk about bearings. Here is a stamped housing around a 1 1/8 inch bearing. You see it's square. The flange is crimped onto the bearing. Here's another one. As we know, there are many different types out on the market today. This is a 2-piece flange. This particular bearing, real popular bearing with us, 1 1/8", fits in that flange, covered by this one, and together this would mount on the hanger. Here's another style bearing housing on some Harrows built years ago. This is a press-in style bearing. Notice the flat edges all the way across, and notice it's just flat, and you have to, it presses into this housing. And lastly, another style of bearing is what some refer to as the old boxing bearing style assemblies. This particular one is a 3-piece unit. There's a top half, a bottom half, and the spool in the center that fits in these grooves. And it is greasable. And these two bolt holes would also bolt to the hanger on your disc carrier. We hope you found this information helpful. As always, if you need a specific replacement part or have any questions, be sure to stop by one of our retail locations or shop with us online at agrisupply.com. Agri Supply, it's what's inside.